Have you ever really stopped to think about what governs your life? I mean, really governs it? You might think it's the laws written down in some dusty book. But what if it's something else? What if it's an invisible architecture of power, built entirely out of code? Well, that's the hidden world we're going to explore together.
Yeah, this quote right here, it just gets straight to the heart of it all. We're not talking about legal texts anymore. The rules that have the most power, the ones that really shape your daily reality, they're not just written down. They're written into the code of the apps and systems we use every single day. And the thing is, they execute themselves, instantly, and with absolutely no appeal.
Now, to really wrap our heads around this new kind of digital control, we actually have to start by looking at a very, very old problem with traditional law itself.
Okay, so way back in 1910, this legal scholar, Roscoe Pound, he pointed out something he called the execution gap. And it's a simple idea, but it's huge. It's the gap between the law on the books and the law in action. Basically, just because a law is written down, that doesn't mean it's actually enforced in the real world. There's this massive gap between the rights you have on paper and the justice you can actually get.
And when I say massive, I mean it. This isn't just a tiny crack, it's a canyon. Just look at wage theft. For every single dollar that's documented as stolen from a worker, less than 2 cents is ever actually recovered. That 98.9% gap, that's not just one rule failing. That is a systemic failure. And it's this exact weakness, this gap, that this new digital architecture is built to exploit, and in some ways to solve, but not for our benefit.
And that brings us to the main event, this new architecture of control. It's an invisible infrastructure of power that, unlike the old system, doesn't have an execution gap. Why? Because it's designed from the ground up to execute its own rules perfectly, automatically, every single time.
So we are living through this truly bizarre paradox. On one hand, we are granting legal rights, even personhood, to all sorts of non-human things, corporations, AI systems, even rivers. But at the exact same time, our own rights, our own agency as human beings, it's actually shrinking in the digital world. This is what some are calling reverse personhood.
Just think about this divide for a second. A corporation has First Amendment rights to pour unlimited cash into politics. A river in New Zealand can literally have legal guardians to protect it. But you, on a giant social media platform, you have no First Amendment rights, no right to due process. Your entire digital existence is governed by a terms of service agreement you scrolled past in half a second and couldn't change even if you wanted to.
So what's the economic engine that's driving all of this? Well, it's a concept called surveillance capitalism. It's a whole new kind of economic logic, where the raw material isn't oil, it isn't steel, it's us. It's our human experience. Our clicks, our DMs, our likes, our emotions, all of it is harvested as free raw material and then sold as products that predict and even shape our future behavior.
Shoshana Zuboff, who came up with the term, she calls this logic parasitic. And the key to the whole thing is this profound asymmetry of knowledge. As she puts it, they know everything about us, whereas we know little or nothing about them. They are building these massive cathedrals of data about every single one of us, while their own operations stay hidden away inside a black box.
You know, some thinkers, like Yanis Varoufakis, argue this is so different from the capitalism we're used to that it needs a totally new name, techno-feudalism. In this new model, the big tech platforms are the new feudal lords. They own the digital land, the cloud, the infrastructure. And we are the serfs. We're working that land for free, producing the data that makes them rich, just so we can participate in modern society.
Okay, so all of this sounds pretty abstract, right? Techno-feudalism, surveillance capitalism, but it has very real, tangible, everyday consequences. So what does it actually feel like to live inside this new architecture?
Just think about your own experience online. How many times a day do you get presented with a choice that doesn't really feel like a choice at all?
The cookie banner is the perfect, everyday example of this invisible control. The design is the law here. The big, bright, friendly, accept all button is just screaming to be clicked. But if you want to opt out, well, get ready for a journey through a maze of faded links and pre-checked boxes. This is not a neutral choice. It's what's called a dark pattern, a design that's specifically engineered to manipulate you into giving your consent.
So why do we all just give in and click accept? It's something called consent fatigue. And get this, if you were to actually read every single privacy policy you encountered in 1 year, it would take you 76 full 8-hour workdays. The system is designed to be impossible to meaningfully engage with. Your consent isn't being earned, it's being exhausted out of you.
And what happens if you break the rules of these platform lords? Well, you face a punishment that has no real-world legal equivalent, deplatforming. It is, for all intents and purposes, a form of digital exile. You're cut off from your community, maybe your livelihood, often by a faceless algorithm with no judge, no jury, and no real way to appeal.
And don't think this is some rare thing. Attempts to get people deplatformed are accelerating, hitting record highs. It's become a standard tool for controlling speech in our new digital public square, and it's all happening completely outside of any democratic legal process we'd recognize.
So, if the whole problem is an invisible architecture, then the very first step toward a solution has to making it visible. And the good news is, people are already starting to draw up blueprints for something better.
From the top down, probably the biggest effort is coming out of the European Union. Their new Digital Services and Markets Acts, the DSA and DMA, they're designed to pry open the black boxes, to force transparency on the biggest platforms, the gatekeepers, and to impose some public law onto these private digital empires.
And then there are ideas bubbling up from the bottom up, like platform cooperativism. It asks a pretty radical question. What if the Uber drivers actually owned Uber? What if photographers owned the stock photo site they all contribute to? It's a model where the users and the workers actually own and govern the platform themselves, completely shifting the logical way from private profit toward a shared benefit for everyone involved.
Another really powerful idea is to just stop treating these core digital systems as private marketplaces and start treating them like public infrastructure. I mean, imagine if your digital identity or our payment systems were run like our roads or the power grid, as essential public utilities designed to serve the public good, not to generate private profit.
What's underneath all of these solutions is a fundamental shift in philosophy. It's a move towards what some people are calling a jurisprudence of light. Basically, an entire legal framework where transparency is the default setting. Instead of us having to fight to see how these systems work, the platforms would have to justify any and all secrecy.
And all of this brings us to a fundamental crossroads, a choice that is absolutely going to define our digital future.
Look, these are the two paths in front of us. Path 1 leads to digital serfdom. We'll be ruled by invisible algorithms, our rights defined by terms of service, in a world where corporations and AI have more agency than actual people. But the other path, that one leads to digital sovereignty, a world with democratic governance, data cooperatives, and technology that's actually built to serve human agency, not to subvert it.
For the first time, really, this invisible architecture of control is becoming visible. We can finally see the scaffolding, we can see how it works. That old execution gap was a failure of law in the real world. But this new execution gap, it's being hard-coded directly into our reality. So the question is no longer, what is this architecture? The question now is, what are we going to build next?